Hello, this is Roland Jung from EPLAN Canada. What we all have in common in the industry is that we all one day have to build our panel. EPLAN and Rittal, strong partners in this particular area, we have really thought out an interesting concept behind this panel building. Here, this is something that we all have in common. We all, sooner or later, have to put our panels together. And here are the different steps that these people will undergo. The first step, and I'm going to go very quickly, today I'm going to focus on the wiring and wiring fabrication in particular. So the first step we have to do, of course, once we receive all the packages, all the components from the sourcing, and the engineering has done their schematics and their panel layouts, we can actually start here building our panels. The first step is the cutting portion. The cutting portion, we even have here an interesting solution, which is going to automatically cut your DIN rails, your ducts. It's called a SecRex machine that automatically does it. You often have those in the corner somewhere, sometimes a grinder. In that particular case, I can even help you with some documentation that I can share through our cloud, our eView cloud. This eView can be handy in many different aspects of your fabrication, because if you organize your reports correctly, you can have one report here for the cutting section. So here you have in detail every DIN rail and every duct available and the exact length. Here in Canada, we like to work in inches, so I added also the inch value as well as the millimeter value. It's of course the equivalent, depending on what you prefer. Now the next step coming along here is the panel modification. Panel modification is a very specific one where you have to drill, cut holes, and Rittal has here an interesting machine, also has a mod center you can use where they will automatically drill and cut if it's actually here this PerfoX BC. Otherwise, you even have the PerfoX LC, which is a laser cutter that can even go a little bit faster because it does multiple surfaces at once, right? So really nice, and they even offer a service that you can order your panel so directly from your ePlan design. So let's go back to the ePlan here. Directly from the ePlan, you can send them your project and they can take it from here, just export the machining information directly to the PerfoX. So it's a direct communication between the software and the machine. If you only have to do one or two panels in your life, and this is not that much, I can even give you a small report for the drilling here. And this report will then basically tell you very exactly and precisely where this hole is required with the detailed X and Y coordinates and the size of that hole or cutout. So these can also be created automatically. The next step, once you have your ducts and rails, everything is prepared, you go back in your panel shop and you will do the assembly. Now, for the assembly here, the mechanical, again, we have different solutions. eView, exactly the tool I just showed you, is the exact tool that is proposed here. So going back to eView, we have a specific sheet here to help you assemble basically what's on the door, what's on the side, and what is inside the specific panel. So here you can see we have the face of the plate and the details of what goes where. You have the exact detailed device tag. And speaking of a device tag, of course, each device tag is represented by a part number. That's a small list. Everything is generated automatically. Speaking of device tags, you have to print those devices. So this, in this section here, is most likely mentioned as the labeling. We don't see it here in particular because it's an automatic process. You can step up from ePlan, directly throw over to one of my favorite printers, the Project Complete Marking tool, which basically just takes your project. You can select what labels you want, and bingo, by exporting, you just get the labels you need for the devices, for the wires, and everything is there. Now, this is actually where this video is actually focusing on. This video, next step, is the wire and wire fabrication. We strongly believe that the biggest gain is here. The biggest gain is, of course, if you can afford the wire fabrication to be done automatically in a machine like this, where all the wires are handled all at once, different sizes, up to 36 different sizes can be handled here. The machine will pretty much cut, crimp, and label the wires all at the same time. Now, there's an in-between step. Obviously, it's called the semi-automatic way. And in this semi-automatic, we actually help you cut the wires in the proper length, and we help you crimp the wires at the end. For this, we have to also attach a wire label. Ideally, the wire label should be the source and target, a little bit like I did here, where you can see source and target. If you see a wire twice, it's because we do put it at both ends. And interestingly here, this is one of the most popular printer, I guess, with Phoenix Contact. It's a Thermomark roll. You can just pre-print these labels, and then you can fabricate automatically the specific wires. Now, let's go back one step. If we go back to EPLAN, in EPLAN, we actually had the wire length, right? And for the wire, with the wire length, we can now export for the wiring here, especially the wire fabrication, we can export right away to the Rittal WT. This is the big machine, but we can also export here inside the labeling to the Rittal length cutting technology, the C8. And what this does, it basically just generates an Excel sheet. A simple Excel sheet where you can see here the wire number or serial number. You can see the color, the gauge, a few different informations like the source and target. And this is actually feeding the wire cutter. Now, very important, this is an Excel sheet. Excel sheets can actually be imported into the Phoenix Contact Project Complete. And ideally, you actually take this file and you import it directly into your Phoenix Contact. Now, inside Phoenix Contact, what you have to know is that the way it works is you have some printers, right? Printer configuration or active printers. And here, these printers do have most of the printers except the very latest one. The very latest one, this one here, let me just show you if I go back to here. This is the latest technology that they came out with. Really cool because it's a one big printer and you can exchange the front end to have different kits. One kit here is a wrapping kit where the wire is just slipped in, it wraps around. Another one is this one here is the eWire applicator, also a very nice one. This is the one I actually picked. Now, how do I get this to work with Project Complete? All you have to do is just find the Thermomark E600 printer, which is the base unit. And down here in the downloads, I picked the German version here, Treiber, what is this? Treiber und Treiber Bauserie, whatever. And I downloaded the so-called driver. And of course, this driver, all you have to do once it's downloaded, you just have to open the file and run it. You'll see it's an MSI file, and it just installs like any other driver for any of those Phoenix Contact printers, and then it's available. Now, that once this is made available, you can actually go into your Project Complete right here, and you can activate this particular printer, and you can add it with whatever module you actually prefer, the eWire or the eSleeve or the eWrap, whatever. So you can see here in the background, I already picked the eWrap and the eWire, assuming I have those two purchased, and you can activate which one just by clicking on it, and you can say this is the one I activated, which will make the next step a little bit easier, because then you can pre-select the different sizes of wires you want. So remember, the way that EPLAN communicates here with Phoenix Contact is just basically by handshaking the transfer here. Most of the people that already have EPLAN in use and Phoenix Contact Project Complete know about this handshake, but it's really simple. On one side, you have this EPLAN generated file that was basically exported here through the labeling. As an example, I'm going to show you this file again. Here, this is my Excel sheet that came out, right? So just for the bare example, I'm going to save this file somewhere into a position or a place where I actually remember where it is. Let's say in the download section. Okay, so I just save it there, or in the document section. So now you can see it's a very simple Excel sheet with a couple of columns, very easy. Okay, now on the Phoenix Contact side, you have this data exchange. I already created a new data exchange. I'm just going to hit the edit button here. Interesting, if you call us up here at EPLAN Canada or send us an email, we can actually send you here via the export, right? I'll export a file called XML. So here, I'm just going to export that file very quickly into a space where, of course, I can always retrieve it very easily. So it's going to be in the Phoenix Contact, if I have a PXC folder, and I would be able to just send it to you. And that file, of course, you would just have to import it, and you would have exactly those settings that you can see here. Okay, and this is also true when you have two different machines down in the production or up. One person only has to do the configuration, not everyone. So here you can see that it starts with basically a certain name. That name actually picks up the import file. This import file is nothing else than the file that I just generated there under my documents, right? I don't really use the filter, the logic, the conditional field. I run right away to the material mapping. The material mapping is interesting because here you can pick whichever printer you want, and it actually allows you to pick the exact wire label that you want to use. So, which I already did. I picked here a 16 American wire gauge, 1.5 millimeter square. It's an E15R. That's pretty much the order number you will need when you order these specific labels with Phoenix Contact. And there you go. So you can see that all along while I was in there, as soon as the source was opened, it was an Excel sheet, and you could see down here the exact content of that Excel sheet with all these columns, right? Sometimes you can say, okay, spare the first line or whatever. I don't really mind about that. So it's basically one label. And here is the really finicky trick. If you go in here and you carefully look on this side here, let's put it to 100%. You can see a little bit better. You can see the label as I just created it. I want the source, the serial number or wire number, which I modified in my EPLAN, and the target, okay? So here you can see the group 1 is the blue. Blue is right in the middle. The yellow is right at the top, and the group 3 is down at the bottom there. So all you really do if you want to modify, let's say we want to change the source here, okay? So if I want to, I want this source not to be column number 5, but rather to be the color and the gauge, I would just go and drag and drop here. See this column 2? Whoops, just drag and drop it, release it there. Drag and drop column 3. If you want a slash or a hyphen or whatever in between, you would actually see the cross section in the color. Of course, it's better to check out the real values because then it's a little bit too big. And what you can also do is you can change the size of that text very easily, okay? So you can fit around exactly the way you want this. So this is a 14 yellow, because when you will be producing those wires, you will be producing with this list. So remember, these are wires that you just slide in, slide out, so they wrap around right away in this eWire system. Now, in my personal case here, what I prefer is always to have the source. Now you can see here column 5 is actually the source. So I put the source there, the serial number, and the target. And the reason why I like this is that once the wires are prefabricated in a very comfortable environment, I can just throw them in a bin, and then I can hand them over to the electricians, more than one electrician, and they can then handle the landing in a certain way. So you can see this, I'll get back to that step in a few seconds. Here, this, once you have it done, you can just run the import, and you will see it will then feed primarily these 20 wires. I only have 20 in this particular project. It will feed these 20 wires to the machine one by one. And this is exactly the same order in which you are printing the wires. Okay, so you can just go in there and have those cut, labeled, and then print them. This is your wire fabrication, and I can swear you will save time, because there is no way you can do manually the crimping, the cutting, and wrap around the labels as quickly as these semi-automatic solutions. I mean, it's not like 12 or 6 seconds like the WT, but certainly you save some time. So what we're showing you here with this saving here, about 14%, well, it's 14% in the cutting, but the crimping is actually even more savings. It's definitely worth it, definitely worth it. Now, once the wires are fabricated, right here, coming back to the panel building, you have to do the wiring. That's the landing, pretty much. And here we have a solution called Smart Wiring. Really cute, really nice. I'll show you very quickly. Smart Wiring is a tablet solution, or what you can use, also a Dell touchscreen, whatever. And let me just show you. I'll put this Dell in actually in tablet mode, and suddenly I have no, I'm actually touching the screen. And here, this is exactly the smart wiring we're talking about. Interestingly about this is you can actually look for a specific wire. Okay, so if you're looking for a ground wire because you have to install the ground wire because you just produced it, you can now check it out here. What the intent behind the scene is you can see this has a status of green. So somebody else prior to me has already installed these wires, and let me just reset the filter and find some wires in here that haven't been set. Okay, this wire here, it's a 120V, it's a small jumper between two terminals. Of course, the source, the target are very close to each other, so the visual between how it's actually in the routing is not such a big effect. What's interesting though is also in this tool here, you can check out some comments. By clicking on the comments, you can check out the schematics where this actually comes from. So if you have any doubts about the wire, because you say this is impossible, this cannot be, you can always cross-check where the wire actually comes from. And this wire here is a little bit jumping around between different pages because it's actually connecting two different terminals, right, together. So yes, it might be the correct thing to do or not. We already have here, you can see two different wires that have been locked because you can lock the wires. This is this status white lock, and it already has a comment because for some reason the connection plus should be at the bottom or at the top. So I actually figured out some sort of an error, and anyone can see this. This is a tablet solution. Anyone in your team that has smart wiring installed, you don't even need to install it because it's basically just a link, as you can see at the top there, to the server. It's a really cool feature. Now, the intent, of course, is to follow you as you install it. Now, if you pick up a wire, let's say a wire 3130 that you just pick up from the bin because it hasn't been installed, you can actually search here for 3130 and you will find that wire, right? That's one way of quickly finding these wires, because you have, in this case here in North America, we often use a wire number to represent a signal. Signals, we may have multiple wires, like here you can see we have two wires that have exactly the same wire number, but when you distinctively look at the source and target, they are not on the same source and target. They are not connecting the same object together, so this is very specific. So every wire combined together, source, target, and wire number are absolutely unique. And this is how you can work with this environment here. We also created something else. We also created bundles. So here I have some power bundles. I have some to actually help the process to be wired a little bit faster. Now, obviously, if you have prefabricated your wires and you did not really put these bundles together somehow, well, then the bundles are pretty much useless. But the idea would be, let's say, I want to quickly put together to help the guys on the shop floor pick up all the wires that go in the front door. So between the back plate and the front door, you could create a bundle. Or I want to first power up all my 24 volts, my 120 volts, whatever. I put them in a bundle power. You can actually even use this as a filter here. Bundle, you can actually say I want to bundle only my powers. You can see here I have a few wires that are not yet installed, like these wires here, these two jumpers, because I haven't really handled the jumpers. Very short wires, as you can see, 14 inches. One is the neutral, the other one is the 120, and they have not been installed yet. So this smart wiring will actually help the electrician do the wiring pretty much the way he wants or according to whatever wire he picked up. Remember, the wires he picked up earlier are actually coming from here, right? So if you look carefully in on each of these wires, when they were fabricated, we already did set the source and the target. So if we pick one out of the stroke and we say, okay, we want to see here the PL1 connection 1. Well, let's see if I can find the PL1 connection 1. So I go PL1. Let's do a search very quickly. Boom. And you can see on the left-hand side, we have a PL1 connection 1 right there. It was installed. The length, 33 inches. Most likely, this length, if we actually look into the Excel sheet, is in the Excel sheet. So the information we find here in the smart wiring with the graphics, because this is really the intent behind this, is we want to have here a graphics to help the guys on the shop floor finding each individual component. So when you look at the plug or you look at the terminal here, you can see very precisely. You can even add some device tags. You can mark them up. There are all kinds of informations you know you can display on this here. You can rotate very quickly here. This is all 3D, so you can very precisely see how it actually goes in there. It's a direct derivative of what we see in ePlan when we do our design. It's a fantastic tool. Really, I mean, this is why I believe ePlan, when they come to this step here, they pretty much claim that, you know, you're going to be saving another extra 20% time just on the installation, because you're not going to look around and figure out, okay, where exactly is that wire? Where does it go, right? You don't have to look around 20, 80, 100 different pages of schematics. You have the exact information. The other thing that is really interesting is the online monitoring of what you're doing. So as you move forward, you can see how far your process, how far the people have been working on this particular project. As you can see here, I have 12 out of 18 wires done. It's a small project, I admit, because I'm preparing this. It's a bigger project. I still have, as you can see on the top hand side there, a PLC that has not yet been placed, and that is probably where most of the wiring will go. But I can say that 2/3 of my wires are done, and very quickly I can also see I have some errors to correct because I blocked some wires. It's a fantastic communication tool. This is live, so your engineering and your manufacturing can talk to each other through this, through a server. Just amazing. So anyways, I hope you saw the benefits of ePlan for the manufacturing in the building. I hope I helped you out to show you how to set up the ePlan / project complete printing all at once. Just download the driver and it actually goes into the project complete that you all know actually at this point. EPLAN has also come out with another tool called the Smart Mounting, which actually has a small aspect for the mounting of the components. So when you have a very complex panel, I'd go with the Smart Mount, which combines smart wiring and mounting at the same time. So it has the mounting aspect as well as the wiring aspect. But honestly, if your panels actually fit inside, let's say, a one panel like this, I think a static file like this is also good. This is the eView. It's free. It's with all EPLAN customers. And remember, this eView also has some redlining to communicate back with your engineering team. And it's directly the product of what you see in EPLAN that is fed up here to the web. It replaces pretty much a PDF, which technically you do not control where it actually goes. Here, when we are in these projects, we can actually control who can see and who is not allowed to see. Obviously, smart wiring is a different thing because you're in-house. But here, you can share this with anyone out there, even external users like customers or friends. You want to show your projects. You can, when you add an address, right, whatever you add here, you can also define a certain time frame where he can be allowed to see or edit this project. So you don't have to worry about him copying that right to someone else because he won't. Will be controlled. So anyways, this was Roland from EPLAN Canada. Come and talk to us. We work together on this with Phoenix Contact. It's my preferred printer. The cutting and crimping machines are from Rittal. Rittal C8 is the cutter that we have. I showed you here, and that was the wire fabrication solution. And this is a semi-automatic solution when you want to work your way up to the perfect solution, which is the WT with 36. It's pretty much like a wire printer. I hope you enjoyed. I always forget about this, but yeah, if you want to subscribe, I'll start making some new videos again as we move forward. Thank you. This was Roland from EPLAN Canada.